Hello, and welcome to our conversation with Barracuda. I'm Alex Rayburn, CMO of CoolSpirit, and I welcome along with me today Steve Peake, pre-sales manager from Barracuda. During the next 10 minutes, we'll be discussing how the landscape of security, including email, has changed over the past 18 months. So let's get started. Hi, Steve. Hope you're well.
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Cool. I'll jump into the first question, if that's okay. The last 18 months has seen a huge increase in targeted cyber attacks. What constant examples has Barracuda helped organizations protect themselves from?
Yeah, I think with cyber attacks over the last 18 months, we've seen an evolution where an attacker no longer just targets one aspect of an organization. They don't just target their firewall or their application, their email. What they're doing is actually targeting all of these aspects. And what we're finding is that actually when they do eventually gain some form of access, then they will use that to move around organizations and attack a different vector within an organization. Now, one of the key areas for this is email. So email is a really effective and straightforward tool for an attacker to use to try and compromise organizations. So what we've seen over the last 18 months is a huge increase to phishing emails. They've had lots of subjects in terms of pandemic and new systems brought in that we've all had to make use of. And so spoofing and phishing and using those brands, those awareness campaigns that have been run within the world around the globe, they've been able to use them to try and phish organizations. And really what they're after is credentials, and credentials then lead to account takeover and account compromise. So a real challenge at the moment in terms of what organizations are seeing and what they're having to protect against.
So I guess it's protecting, sorry, not protecting, guys, pretending to be something that you're not and bringing familiarity to gain trust.
Absolutely. Impersonation, I think, is probably what you're thinking there. An impersonation of either a senior employee. If I'm an employee in an organization, I see an email come from my senior exec, do I validate and check it 5 times before I do anything with it? No, I naturally trust it and think it's come from them. So impersonation of an individual is important as a type of an attack. But we also see impersonation of brand, and that's a huge challenge as well for organizations.
We'll discuss that a little bit later, shall we?
Yeah, definitely.
The next question: how do attackers gain access to information? We talked about this already a little bit to target organizations, but what can organizations do to protect themselves?
Yeah, so I think, like you mentioned, we've mentioned one aspect of it, which is phishing. Email phishing, where an attacker is ultimately trying to trick an individual, trick an employee into giving away what is traditionally username and password information. However, there is another aspect to this, and that is the data that's out on the internet. So if you think about sort of what we hear in the media day in, day out, you see a lot of news about compromised systems, hacks of applications we use. So if we think about historically, the likes of LinkedIn have had challenges, Adobe, lots of different technology firms, but also if you think more recently, British Airways, and all these systems hold data. Some of this data is the likes of usernames and passwords. So if you've then used that same username and password for wherever has been compromised, and you use that same credentials in your work as an example, then it's quite easy for me to subscribe to that data and go and target your systems with that login details and ultimately gain access. Now, one of the key things that organizations can do to protect themselves against that type of issue is bring in multi-factor authentication. Now, that's the concept of having an alert or a code or an SMS message come to your mobile device. Now, multi-factor authentication, it can't give you the 100% guarantee, but it does make it a lot harder for attackers to gain access to your system when they've got a username and password.
I think MFA is critical, isn't it, to get it across as much of your IT infrastructure and applications as possible, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, MFA in the corporate world, but at home as well. If you use systems like your Instagram account, make sure it's got MFA on it, so that if someone does get your credentials, they still have to trick you into letting them into the system.
Yeah, because it's great to alert. If you get an MFA alert when you're not actually trying to get into a system straight away, alarm bells. Someone's trying to do something.
Exactly that, and that's a key point there, Alex. You need to not only trust the MFA alert, but really actually understand, have you triggered it? Because actually one of the big compromises and one of the reasons why account takeovers occur especially in the Office 365 world is because users and employees get used to seeing the alerts for the multi-factor authentication, and they don't really validate where they've come from. So it's important that you actually are aware of what's generating those notifications.
Yeah, great point. We'll jump back to impersonation if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
How does this help an attacker gain access to an organization's environment, would you say?
So impersonation comes really in two forms. There's the impersonation of an employee, a trusted individual you may know, you've had conversations with previously, etc. And the moment you see their name on, say, an email, you naturally sort of lower your guard. So you're not really checking to see where those links go off to. Maybe you're not hovering over them, things like this. But then there's the second type of impersonation, which is actually brand impersonation. So organizations spend an awful lot of money making their brand well known. And those brands are given, if you like, a natural trust by us. So if we think about the delivery companies, DHL, UPS, um, all the I'm trying to think of some others off the top of my head. They've gone. Many delivery companies. If you think about those, we see notifications from them all day long, every day, when we're ordering from Amazon, etc. And really what they do is they use those type of brands, and it's not just delivery companies, I use them as an example, but they use those brands to gain trust. So when an email arrives in your inbox, well, maybe you did order that parcel last night and it's just a complete coincidence that this has landed today. But because you've done that and you think you naturally link it, it gives a bit of trust, and you then maybe go and click a URL. Ultimately, both types are actually trying to gain the same scenario, and that is either to gain some information from you or to gain some form of financial reward. But yeah, impersonation is if you like a master key to the whole scenario of phishing, if you like. Impersonation really is the driver to it.
And especially when, we all live busy lives, and if you see something you're familiar with, you just associate and you think it's fine straight away and you carry on. So it's trying to catch you out, isn't it, off guard?
It is exactly that. But like as you said, busy lives, now, back on the road, running between trains, etc. Not quite paying the attention, but trying to do two or three things at once.
Yeah. So how would you say security has changed to combat these type of attacks?
I think from the security aspect, the technology is changing and evolving. So whereas traditionally from an email security perspective, we would have a filter, an email security gateway, which would look for malware, it'd look for malicious items, it would look at what we knew was bad already. Well, the world we live in today, actually you can't live knowing just what was bad. You have to be able to, if you like, predict what may be bad. And so what we've found is technology is changing, it's evolving. We're moving into an API integrated approach with the email platform. So from a Barracuda perspective, if we think of Office 365, it's where many organizations are heading. We've got our API integration, which allows us to look at not only the content of the items, but also the behavioral patterns of the actual employee in the inbox itself. Having that close integration then allows us to not only identify the bad content, but identify change in behavior as well. Now, we do this using the likes of machine learning technology. Cloud-based systems and machine learning allows us to do a lot more analysis than we ever have been before. This means we move away from signature and rules, which is the traditional way of doing email security, and we move towards identity graphs, as in we're able to identify what is different. We are able to look at the context of items as well. So we're able to identify when an item is pretending to be an organization or trying to use that trusted brand. So it's really the evolution of the technology is what we've seen over the past sort of 3-4 years now, but very, very much accelerated over the past 18 months.
Help that we all need protection, don't we, from the baddies per se. So
yeah, definitely.
So last question for this session: beyond putting beyond putting protection in place, what else can organisations do to be ready for when an attack occurs, would you say?
Yeah, so I think it's important to put out there, and any security vendor should be open about this, but no one single security solution can give you 100% guarantee that prevention layers will protect you. Unfortunately, that's just not the world we live nowadays. However, what organizations can do is, if you like, acknowledge that point and work and look at how they resolve an issue if their prevention layers do let them down. And so one of those is having a very good and robust incident response plan. So an incident response plan, being able to know what actions individuals and employees need to take, but also what technology do you need in place to help you with that incident response. So as a great example, the Barracuda has a module in their email protection suite that is designed to search and find all the particular malicious email items that based on a bunch of criteria that you give it. Now that tool is wizard driven. It means that you apply the same incident response process every single time. It's simple and efficient to use. And so what that allows you to do is then, if you like, have that consistent approach to when that prevention layer does let you down. And it's the technology that's driving that.
It's delivering the insight and the knowledge to the team straight away.
It absolutely is.
Helping the bandwidth as well, so they can action things quickly and appropriately.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see people and organizations who have this tool pushing the cleanup and the investigation process to the more junior staff within their IT teams, which then is freeing up their more senior staff, their more skilled staff to deliver the projects that most organizations are desperate to deliver and struggling with resource to meet deadlines.
Yeah, right. Really interesting chat, Steve. Thanks very much for your time, and I'll chat to you again.
Thanks very much, Alex. Nice to chat.
Yes.